I know some of you are doing a whole lot in the gym for absolutely no glute growth, like full performances, hip thrusts, squats, cables. The outfit is cute, the playlist is fire, but your glutes are confused. And it's not just one thing either, it's a bunch of little habits you keep repeating every leg day that are literally canceling out your progress. I was doing them too, so yeah, this is a call out and a wake up call. So if your glutes have been stuck for months and you're like, what am I doing wrong? Yeah, we're about to expose it. First point, being inconsistent and expecting consistent results. This is probably the least exciting one, but it's the most real. You can have the perfect workout plan saved on your phone, the best glute exercises lined up, your meals prepped, your protein goals set, but if you're not consistent, none of it actually matters. And I don't mean showing up when you feel motivated or when you're in a good mood. Anyone can do that. I'm talking about showing up on the random Tuesday when you're tired, when your workout feels like the last thing you want to do, when you've been honestly just completely exhausted from work, when you haven't been seeing any progress in weeks and you're starting to question if it's even working. That's where most people fall off. And I used to be one of them. I was so on and off, it was almost a cycle. I'd get super motivated, go all in for like 2 weeks, hit every workout, eat perfect. Like I was finally that girl, and then something small would throw me off, and then I just don't want to go to the gym anymore. Maybe I missed a day, or I got too busy, or just didn't feel like going, and suddenly that turned into a week off. Then I'd come back feeling behind, frustrated, and like I had to start over again. And the worst part is I actually believed I was being consistent because I kept restarting. But restarting is not the same as staying consistent. Real progress didn't happen until I stopped relying on motivation completely and started building a routine that I could stick to even when I wasn't feeling it. And no, it wasn't perfect. There were workouts where I felt weak, distracted, or just not into it at all. There were weeks where things felt messy and not aesthetic or put together, or my fit wasn't cute and I wasn't feeling it. But I stayed consistent enough that my body had no choice but to respond. That's the part people don't always talk about. Your body doesn't need perfection, it needs repetition. It needs you to keep showing up long enough to actually adapt. Glute growth especially is slow. It takes way longer than most people expect. And if you're constantly stopping and starting, you're basically interrupting your own progress every single time. You're not giving your muscles the chance to build on anything. So if you're feeling stuck or frustrated, you need to be honest with yourself for a second. Have you actually been consistent for months, or have you just had a few good weeks here and there? Because those are two completely different things. The girls you see with strong built glutes didn't get there because they had one perfect program or one perfect month. They got there because they kept going when it was boring, when it felt slow, when nothing exciting was happening. They showed up anyway. And I know that's not the glamorous answer, but it's the one that actually works every single time. Second point, avoiding progress overload. I used to tell myself my glutes just weren't genetically blessed, and that excuse was way more comfortable than admitting I wasn't actually pushing myself in my workouts. It made me feel better in the moment, like it just wasn't in my control. But looking back, I can see exactly what I was doing wrong. I'd walk into the gym, go through the same routine every single week, use the same weights, hit the same number of reps, rest the same amount of time, and then leave expecting something to change. And when nothing did, I'd get frustrated, confused, and honestly a little defeated. But if you really think about it, it makes no sense. Why would your body change if you're giving it no reason to? Your muscles are smart. They adapt to what you consistently give them. And if what you're giving them never increases or challenges them, they have no reason to grow. That's where progressive overload comes in. And I promise it's not as complicated as it sounds. It's not some advanced technique only serious lifters use. It's literally just the idea of doing a little bit more over time. That could mean adding 5 pounds to your hip thrust, squeezing out 1 or 2 more reps than last week, slowing down your tempo so your glutes are actually under more tension, or even just improving your form so the right muscles are doing the work. But for the longest time, I wasn't doing any of that. Like I was stuck in my comfort zone. I had my safe weights, I guess you want to call them, the ones I knew I could finish without really struggling. And I convinced myself that as long as I was showing up, that was enough. And like, yes, showing up matters, like 100% it does. But what you do when you show up matters even more. Once I started tracking my workouts and actually paying attention to my numbers, And I low-key got called out on it, you know, from doing the same numbers every single week. That's when I knew. I was like, okay, girl, you gotta add some weight on there now. You gotta graduate from those weights. So I started treating my workouts like something I wanted to improve at, not just get through. Even small wins like adding a single rep or slightly increasing weight started to add up. And over time, those small changes created real results. My glutes finally had a reason to grow because I was finally giving them a challenge. And just to be clear, this isn't about ego lifting or throwing on the heaviest weight in the gym just to say you did it. If your form is off and you're not even feeling your glutes at all at that point, that's not helping you. This is about being intentional and honest with yourself. If your lifts look exactly the same now as they did months ago, okay, like this is your sign that something needs to change. Growth doesn't come from staying comfortable. It comes from pushing past that point just enough to force your body to adapt. So if you've been feeling stuck, like you're putting in the effort but not seeing the results, take a step back and look at how you're training. Because if you're not progressively overloading in some way, shape, or form, you're not really building. You're just maintaining. And if your goal is glute growth, maintaining is not where you want to be. Third point, rushing your reps and using momentum. I used to fly through my workouts like I was on a timer, thinking that the more exercises I crammed in, the faster I got through them, the better my session was. In my head, I was being productive, okay? I'd finish a workout quickly, be sweaty, feel tired, and think, okay, that was solid. But when I was really looking back, all I was doing was rushing through the movements without actually making them count. And when it comes to glute growth, that approach just doesn't work. How you perform each rep matters so much more than how many exercises you check off your list. You can have the perfect program on paper, but if your execution is sloppy, rushed, or just mindless, you're leaving so much progress on the table. I didn't even realize how much I was relying on momentum until I actually slowed things down. I was bouncing out the bottom of my hip thrust so bad at one point that I just, like, my ultimate goal with that was I wanted to push 4 plates. And boy, was I bouncing that weight up and down just to get it over with. That like, yeah, I made it to that weight, but really what was the point of that? Nothing. It didn't do me anything. I also used to swing my RDLs instead of controlling them and rushing through every set. It looked like I was lifting, but my glutes weren't really doing the work they were supposed to. Once I made the switch to slowing everything down, especially focusing on the eccentric, which is the lowering part of the movement, everything changed. It felt harder at first, like way harder, even with the same weight, but that's exactly the point. Like you'll actually feel it after. I started actually feeling my glutes working instead of just going through the motions. And that feeling is something you can't fake. When your form is controlled and intentional, you know exactly where the attention is going. That mind to muscle connection people talk about all the time isn't just a trend or something influencers say to sound smart. It's real and it makes a huge difference. I'll give you an example. When I was doing abductions, I would be either distracted talking to someone or looking at someone and not really feeling it like where it's supposed to, like my upper glutes over here. I would just push the weight in and out like this until I was like, okay, I'm not really feeling anything right now because I'm not concentrated on it. I'm not actually connecting that mind to muscle connection. So I had to stop, restart, or just start my next set just because I was already finished with my first set. I thought about it, and once I connected both, that's when I was like, okay, now I'm feeling it more. Another example is when you're squeezing at the top of hip thrust, or like pausing for a second and then lowering the weight with control, your muscles are under tension for longer. And that time under tension is a huge factor in muscle growth. It's not about making every rep painfully slow or overthinking every second of the movement, but it is about being in control. There's a difference between moving weight and training a muscle, and I had to learn that the hard way. Now, when I'm working out, I actually ask myself, if someone was watching this set, would it look like I'm training with intention, or would it look like I'm just trying to get through it? That one question completely shifted my mindset, to be honest. I stopped caring about how fast I could finish or how much weight was really on there and started focusing on how well I could perform each rep. And the crazy part is my workouts didn't need to be longer or more complicated. They just needed to be better, quality over speed every single time. Because at the end of the day, your muscles don't care if you finished your workout in 45 minutes or an hour. They care about the tension, the control, and the effort you gave them. And once I understood that, everything started to click. Fourth point, quitting your sets before they actually count. This one hurt my ego a little when I first realized, because I generally thought I was training hard. I was convinced I was doing everything right, but then I learned what close to failure actually feels like. And it completely changed my perspective. I used to stop my sets the second things started to burn or feel a little bit uncomfortable. And in my head, I'd be like, okay, yeah, that's enough. I did my job. But at that point, that first wave of discomfort is not where growth happens. That's just the beginning of where your set actually starts to become effective. There's a huge difference between something feeling hard and your muscles actually being close to fatigue. And I didn't understand that at all. When you're training glutes, especially on exercises like hip thrusts, RDLs, or Bulgarian split squats, those last few reps are everything. I'm talking about the reps where your form is still solid, but everything starts shaking a little. Your brain is telling you to stop, and you're seriously questioning why you chose this lifestyle. That's the zone where your body gets the signal to adapt and grow. Before I was barely tapping into that, I'd rack the weight, stand up immediately, grab my phone, and move on like nothing really happened. And if that sounds familiar, it probably means you've got more in the tank than you think. I say that with love because I was exactly the same. Once I started pushing my workout sets closer to failure, not every single set, but the ones that actually mattered, everything shifted. My workouts felt different in a way I couldn't ignore. My glutes didn't just feel activated, they felt properly worked. Like I had actually given them a reason to respond. And that's when I started seeing real changes. Now, this doesn't mean you need to train like a maniac or collapse on the floor after every set. It's not about being dramatic or reckless. It's about being honest with yourself during your sets. Ask yourself, could I have done 3 or 4 more reps with good form? Even two. If the answer is yes, then you probably stopped too early. And that's a hard pill to swallow sometimes, especially if you've convinced yourself you're already pushing hard. I promise you, I have felt this so many times. But growth doesn't come from always playing it safe. It comes from being willing to sit in the uncomfortable space just a bit longer. That's where the progress is. You don't have to live there every single set, but you do have to visit it consistently if you actually want to see change. And once I understood that, and once you understand that, I realized, and you will realize, that having been training as hard as you thought you were, and you were just training in comfortability. Fifth point, ignoring your nutrition. I hate to say it, but you cannot out-train under eating. And I learned that the hard way as well, okay? For the longest time, I really believed I could just work harder in the gym and that would make up for everything else. I was consistent with my workouts. I hit all my glute days because that was my biggest goal, honestly. Trying every exercise I saw online, pushing through sessions even when I didn't feel like it, but I still wasn't seeing the growth I wanted. And it was so frustrating because in my head, I was doing everything right. I was. But what I didn't want to admit was that my nutrition just wasn't matching my goals. I wasn't eating enough, and more importantly, I wasn't eating in a way that actually supported muscle growth. It's not just about eating more food randomly, it's about giving your body what it needs to build. Your glutes are muscles, and muscles need fuel to grow. If you're constantly in a calorie deficit, skipping meals, or barely getting enough protein, your body simply doesn't have the resources to create new muscle tissue. It's like trying to build a house with no materials, and then wondering why nothing is going up. That was literally me. Once I started paying real attention to my protein intake especially, things started to shift. And I'm not saying I became perfect overnight, because I didn't, but I became consistent. I made sure I was actually fueling my body daily, not just on my good days. And the difference was noticeable. My workouts felt stronger, I had more energy, I was enjoying myself through sessions, and my recovery improved so much. I wasn't as sore for days in a way that slowed me down, and I could actually train with intention again sooner. And the biggest thing, my glutes finally started responding. Another part of this that no one really prepares you for is how uncomfortable it can feel mentally to start eating more. Especially as a girl in fitness, there's so much pressure to stay lean all the time, to look a certain way 24/7. And the idea of the scale going up even a little can mess with your head. I went through that too. There were moments where I questioned if I was doing the right thing, even though logically I knew I needed to fuel my body. Real talk, everything that I would always eat would go to my stomach. And all I wanted was to stay lean and have abs. And I would just question myself, why isn't this being pushed down? Why isn't this going to places where I want it to go? But here's the reality. Growth phases require fuel. You can't expect your body to build something new if you're not giving it enough to work with. And yes, that might mean you don't look as snatched every single day. That means your weight fluctuates. But you have to decide what your actual goal is. If your goal is real glute growth, you cannot stay in a constant underfed state and expect that to happen. It just doesn't work like that, no matter how hard you train. So if you feel like you've been putting in the work and not seeing results, take an honest look at your nutrition. Not what you think you're eating, not what you tell yourself you're eating, but what you're consistently doing to a day-to-day basis. Because this could easily be the missing piece that finally makes everything click. If you found this video valuable, make sure to give it a like and subscribe for more fitness and health-related content, specifically for us girls who want to achieve our dream body, mind, soul, and spirit. Stay consistent, stay confident, and I'll see you in the next one.